strong Pokémon, weak Pokémon. That is only the selfish perception of people. Truly skilled trainers should try to win with their favorites. This quote from Karen in Generation 2 has stuck around for years and rings true for so many people. Many Pokemon fans out there would rather use Pokemon that they really have a connection to and enjoy rather than just always using the strong ones. But man, some of those Pokemon are just really hard to use. And that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. There is no shortage of Pokemon out there across 9 generations that definitely could be better and have so much wasted potential. This could be for any number of reasons. A Pokemon should have gotten another evolution, it could have got a different typing, it could have a better moveset, heck, just even making it appear more in the game it was introduced in. For today's video, I wanted to share with all of you some Pokemon that I feel have some wasted potential. Now, of course, as we're quoting from Karen, are any of these Pokemon bad? No! Well, maybe a few of them. But for real, as always, any of the Pokemon that I talk about in today's video, if they happen to be your favorite, if you love any of these Pokemon, I love that for you, and any Pokemon out there can be anyone's favorite. The Pokemon I talk about in today's video are just some that I feel could have a little bit of slight improvement here and there if Pokemon was interested in ever doing anything with any of them. If y'all are excited to talk about some Pokemon that could use a glow up in today's video, make sure to go down below and hit that subscribe button to make sure you are up to date on all the content here on the channel. Every subscription is one more prayer that the Pokemon Company will one day remember that cast form exists. Which is a great segue into our first Pokemon that we're going to be talking about that I feel has a massive amount of wasted potential, that being cast form. For cast form, I genuinely believe that this is a Pokemon that they could have done so much with and just purely chose not to. The main gimmick of cast form is that it changes what it looks like and what its form is based off of the weather conditions that are currently occurring around it in battle. Now, I will admit, where I do quite enjoy what they did with this Pokemon is I love that they changed the type of cast form depending on the weather condition that it is currently set in. Fire for the sunny form, water for the rainy form, and ice for the snowy form. But unfortunately, that is kind of where it ends with cast form. There just is not much else to it other than those 3 forms. I mean, its stats are not incredible, so it's not even that useful in battle. But where I think lies in the biggest missed opportunity with cast form is that there are weather conditions that cast form does not have a form for. I mean, why even introduce a weather-related Pokemon? Like, that's the entire gimmick of this Pokemon, is that it changes its form based on certain weather conditions if it doesn't have forms in certain weather conditions. I mean, sandstorm and fog, there's no form for cast form for it. I definitely think that this is a Pokemon that if they really wanted to, they could have kept up with it every generation, and whenever they added a weather condition or had something different added in, they could have added in another form for cast form if cast form was in the game. I just think that they deemed cast form not important enough to receive new forms, unfortunately. Speaking of Pokemon that just don't feel important enough to the Pokemon Company, let's talk about some Pokemon that I'm going to categorize together, starting with Dhelmise. Now wait, hold on, I'm sure there are some people out there in the comment section already typing their message saying, but wait, I love Dhelmise. Dhelmise is great, it's an amazing concept, and I agree with you. Where I feel like Dhelmise's wasted potential lies is in the fact that for a Pokemon with such a fantastic concept, is so well designed, looks so incredible, and is not even that bad stat-wise, why do I feel like I never see this thing? Alright, 'cause I don't! Dhelmise, in my opinion, is a severely underutilized Pokemon. I mean, to be fair, in its game it is utilized on the team of the Ghost-type Elite Four member Acerola, but other than that, I mean, there's like one place to find it in the game, and it's not really seen elsewhere, and then even in the later entries in the series, it's not even in Scarlet and Violet, and then in Sword and Shield, I feel like I never saw it either. So for a Pokemon that I think is so great, why do we never see it anywhere? I don't know, maybe this is just a me thing, but I'm sure all the Dhelmise fans out there will agree with me. Another pair of Pokemon that I feel this exact same way about would be Heatmor and Durant. If we're going to talk about Pokemon that I feel like I never saw and never got utilized, Heatmor and Durant would be 2 at the very top of the list. These Pokemon have such an interesting relationship to each other, and I really think that this is an interesting pair of Pokemon, but unfortunately, the only time you really get to see them is at the very end of the game when you already have your final team all done, and you're not really looking to add anybody else. You're on your way to the Pokemon League, so it's like, well, they're there. I think where their wasted potential lies for Durant and Heatmore is this: there's not really a lot of opportunity to use them. So for an interesting pair of Pokemon, you don't really feel like you ever get the opportunity to have them on your team. Speaking of Pokemon on your team, the next category of Pokemon in today's video that we are going to discuss is Pokemon that I feel like for battle strategy and reasons could just use a little bit of a buff there. Starting off with a Pokemon that everybody just knows that this thing is not great, let's talk about Sunflora. Sunflora's stats are, well, numbers, and I just feel like that this Pokemon is missing something. Like, it could get another typing, it could get another evolution, they could give this thing a mega, something, anything, like even a regional variant at this point. I know that's not really fixing the problem of Sunflora, it's just, you know, adding a different Sunflora on top of it, but look, I'll take anything at this point. This Sunflora just needs something. I do know that there are a lot of fan designs out there of Sunflora being a grass fire type, and I think that that would have been amazing. I think that Game Freak at the time might have just been nervous to introduce something like Grass Fire that soon into the series, given that Sunflora was Gen 2. But I mean, why not? Step outside of the box a little bit. It would have been crazy at the time. I mean, could you imagine if Sunflora, of all Pokemon, was our first Grass Fire type and we got it way back when in Generation 2? That would have been wild. Moving on to our next Pokemon in a totally unplanned segue, let's talk about our actual first Grass Fire type Pokemon, Scovillain. Now, this Pokemon caused quite a stir when it was introduced. Everybody was so hyped, so excited. The first grass fire type Pokemon in Generation 9. We all couldn't believe it. We were all ecstatic, and this is what we got. Alright, I'm making it sound like Scovillain is bad. Scovillain is not bad by any means. I mean, this thing just feels unfinished. It just feels like there could have been another evolution. It feels like another evolution was meant to be there. The concept is amazing. I love Scovillain's design, and is honestly probably one of my favorite designed Pokemon of Generation 9. I truly, genuinely enjoy Scovillain for what it is. I just feel like for all the hype that a grass fire type Pokemon had over all these generations, we were expecting something just a little bit more, and I feel like a third evolution, giving it another head, adding in like maybe a yellow pepper head, I don't know, something along those lines. Like, that's just what I envision in my mind. Just another evolution, I feel like would have really just put the pepper on top of the cake. That sounds disgusting. Speaking of Pokemon that needed third evolutions, let's talk about the elemental monkeys. Everybody's favorite Pokemon to talk about. Just kidding, it seems like everybody hates these things. And that is no joke. I have made an entire short dedicated to these elemental monkeys here on this channel, talking about how there is a hatred with these things. People just look at these monkeys, act like they stubbed their toe, stole their dog in the middle of the night, and left their fridge open. These Pokemon are meant to kind of be a second version of a starter trio. I mean, we are given these Pokemon based off of what starter we chose. That literally is their entire gimmick, is that they are essentially like a starter trio. So, why do they have a second evolution, the awkward teen phase, but not another one after it? If they were really emulating starter Pokemon, then all three of them should have gotten a final evolution in a third stage. Why did we not do that? It just feels like a missed opportunity. And who knows, maybe if those third Evos were well designed, it would help with their likability. Yeah, I actually severely doubt that, but I just wanted to mention it, you know, just a boy can dream. Next up, I want to talk about two Pokemon that have the exact same issue, so I'm just going to talk about them together. And their issue and wasted potential lies in the fact that they needed evolutions, but instead they both got pre-evolutions: Sudowoodo and Chimecho. Now look, Sudowoodo and Chimecho are not powerhouses by any stretch of the imagination. By any way, shape, or form, these Pokemon are not doing much, alright? But they possibly could have if they got another evolution. So someone tell me why Pokemon looked at these two specifically and said, you know what they need? A baby. A pre-evolution. And for what? Sure, Bonsly is cute, I loved it in the anime, and Chingling is it exists. I just feel like everybody looks at Chimecho and Sudowoodo in a very similar way of, oh, these Pokemon are just not great. They're not, you know, fun to use in battle because they're so weak. And they really could have benefited from some type of evolution, a Mega, anything. These Pokemon could have gotten any type of buff. But instead, the Pokemon Company just played in their faces and just slapped them with a baby. Like, could you imagine? You're already struggling. You're going through a hard time. You got bills that need to get paid, and somebody just hands you a baby that you didn't ask for. That is exactly what Chingling and Bonsly are giving. I know everybody loves the baby Pokemon. They're so cute. I know that's why we have them. It's just for the cuteness factor. But y'all, I mean, we have to admit that sometimes they're just, you know, we don't need them. All right, like these Pokemon were not necessary. Moving on to the topic of evolutions, our next pair of Pokemon that we are going to talk about for wasted potential is Pokemon that have been talked about several times, and I think this is actually one of the biggest missed opportunities and biggest fumbles that Pokemon has ever made. Do y'all remember when Alomomola first came out and everybody's first thought was, wow, I can't pronounce that name? And then everybody's second thought was, oh, that's so great that Luvdisc is finally getting an evolution. Luvdisc definitely needed it. And then they didn't. Turns out that even though these Pokemon look exactly the freaking same, they do not have anything to do with each other. Pokemon, I don't know what happened, but y'all really sold on this one because Luvdisc genuinely needed an evolution. It needed something because it is not only a forgettable Pokemon, but it is not a Pokemon that is ever really getting used in battle. And Alomomola could have been exactly that. It could have given it the buff in stats. It got a new design. It could have been great. And they didn't. I also low-key thought that they could have given the fairy typing to both Luvdisc and Alomomola just as an extra added buff, but clearly if they didn't even want to make them evolutions of each other, they were not giving this thing a new typing, that's for sure. The next Pokemon that I'm going to be talking about is one that I feel like a lot of people have thought about a lot in terms of there just needs to be something more for this Pokemon, and that would be Golduck. For me personally, Golduck kind of falls in the realm of Raichu's territory, to where the first evolution or Pokemon that came previously before it is just so iconic, so memorable, everybody talks about it, everybody knows about it, that no one really ever thinks about the evolution. There is a lot of people that believe that Golduck should have been a water psychic typing. I mean, there's so much psychic energy talk with Psyduck's headaches, and then Golduck has psychic energy apparently according to some of its Pokedex entries. Like, why was this thing not water psychic typing? Like, I know we had so many water psychic types in Generation 1. We had Starmie, we had Slowbro, and the fact that there were so many of them in the first generation proves how many that there truly were, to the point that they didn't want to make Golduck one because we already had so many. Moving on to a personal favorite Pokemon of mine that I am so sad to see included in this video today, but unfortunately it does deserve to be in this video today because the amount of wasted potential this Pokemon has, insane. I'm going to be talking about Zebstrika. When Generation 5 came out and I found out that there was going to be an electric type zebra Pokemon, how could you not immediately be obsessed and fall in love and want to use it on your team? Because I certainly did. I caught a Blitzel as soon as I could, evolved it into Zebstrika, and it just wasn't as good as I thought it would be. Now, of course, for an early game Pokemon, a lot of people probably didn't think that Blitzel and Zebstrika were going to be much of a powerhouse, but I mean, this was a Pokemon that was really well designed and so nice to look at that of course I wanted to use it on my team. That move pool of it is dragging it down like a bag of bricks underwater. It is insane that this is a physical electric type Pokemon, which at the time was kind of a death sentence, because getting an electric type physical attacker essentially meant that you either had to use Spark or you had to use Wild Charge, which was one of the only physical electric type attacks, and it does damage to your own Pokemon. So the fact that this Pokemon had a choice of 2 attacking moves, one that doesn't even have a base power above 80, and another one that does damage to itself, just really wasn't helping its case. Look, I'm not saying that Zebstrika was unusable by any means, and trust and believe, I love Zebstrika enough to use it no matter what. I know some ran it as a special mixed attacker with Discharge and Thunderbolt and all that, but look, this Pokemon, it really deserves so much better, and its move pool is one thing that it definitely could have used better. But as we round out our list today of Pokemon that I believe have wasted potential, we have 3 Pokemon remaining, but before we dive into those 3, make sure to go down below and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already to stay up to date of all the content here on the channel. Plus, it's free, and I'm also trying to reach 2,000 subscribers by the end of this year, so I would love for all of you to stick around. Keeping the ball rolling with another Generation 5 favorite of mine, this Pokemon is one one that its ability is actually the thing that is dragging it down, and this Pokemon is Archeops. I had never felt so passionately about a fossil Pokemon until Archeops. I think that this Pokemon is adorable, I love its colorful design, I think that the typing is cool, rock flying, I really enjoy that, but its ability, oh my lord. Look y'all, I know this Pokemon would be busted without its ability. This Pokemon would be busted broken, but with its ability, it's like, ugh, like, oh, like, I just feel sorry for it to a certain degree. Like, I wouldn't put this in the same category as slacking, but at the same time, I kind of would put it in a similar category to slacking, and that Truant definitely does hinder it a little bit because it, you know, with that attack stat very well needs it. So Archeops is very similar to that, but I feel like it's just odd to give such a awful ability to a fossil Pokemon and then have the other fossil Pokemon essentially be completely normal with a normal ability. Next up, we are taking a jump ahead in time over to Generation 9 with one of our most recent additions to the Pokemon series, with a Pokemon that was introduced in the Scarlet and Violet DLC. My inclusion of this Pokemon in today's video is not because this Pokemon is awful. I just personally feel like this Pokemon, for being a part of a legendary trio, could really have gotten some better stuff going for it. And that Pokemon is Fezandipiti. Now, I love Fezandipiti's design, I love Fezandipiti's type. I mean, Poison Fairy, amazing. Only been done once before with Galarian Weezing, so I love seeing this typing come back. I think that Fezandipiti originally was my favorite out of the Loyal 3. So when I actually caught one for myself and of course wanted to use it, I was a little bit disappointed to find that its stats are really not that great. Now, I will give credit where credit is due. Fezandipiti is a special wall. Its special defense is at 125. So if that's what they were going for with this Pokemon, then they absolutely achieved it. But I just definitely think that compared to the other two in the trio, it just felt a little lackluster to me, which was definitely sad to see. And we have arrived at our final Pokemon here today that we are talking about wasted potential for, and this Pokemon is one that I wanted to save for last because this Pokemon truly needs all the help that it can get. Let us take a quick trip back in time to the Hisui region in Pokemon Legends Arceus, a game where we received a lot of regional variants of Pokemon that were extremely cool, very powerful, so awesome to use on your team. And one of them, well, wasn't. You should know exactly who I'm talking about because of how large and impossible to miss this Pokemon is, Hisuian Avalugg. Now, was Avalugg at the top of my list of Pokemon that needed a regional variant or a regional form? No, absolutely not. I was not even thinking about this Pokemon when this game came out, but we got it anyway, so I was excited to see what potential it had. And when I saw its typing, oof. When I saw its speed stat, even worse! Ice Rock may be a fantastic type offensively, but defensively, this typing is, garbage. I've seen Shakespearean tragedies that are more fun than this typing. That, of course, mixed with the fact that this Pokemon's speed stat is as slow as, well, you know, a glacier. This Pokemon needs a lot of strategy to even work around possibly making it useful. So I think if there is a Pokemon like that, where you need to do so much just to attempt to make it even halfway decent, there is a lot of wasted potential there. Like, I'm not even sure myself what kind of help we could give Hisuian Avalugg to make it better. Like, obviously, I know in current generations we could do things like Trick Room or Quick Claw or things like that to try to make it a little bit nicer, but y'all, I mean, this Pokemon, if you have any ideas, let that be the comment question of the day. If you were to change one thing about Hisuian Avalugg to make it a better Pokemon overall, just in general, what would you change? But with that comes the close of today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed talking about some Pokemon that I feel have wasted potential. I, of course, believe in every single one of these Pokemon. I think that if you want to use them on your team, absolutely by all means, go ahead and use them. Love your favorites, use your favorites. You can like whatever Pokemon you like. I just think these Pokemon, if Pokemon ever wanted to give a little bit of help to any of them, it would be greatly appreciated. Also, definitely let me know down in the comment section below if you would like to see me make a part 2 of this video where I talk about even more Pokemon that I feel like could use some improvement. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go order myself a new coffee table because I just noticed that mine seems to be melting.